Imagine waking up tomorrow with absolutely nothing planned. No schedule demanding your attention. No endless notifications. No race against the clock. As the first rays of sunlight touch the ground, you stretch, step outside, and ask yourself just one simple question. What should I do today? For most of us, that sounds like a rare day off. But for almost 99% of human history, it was simply the way humans lived. When we think about ancient people, we usually picture them running after wild animals from sunrise to sunset, fighting every moment just to stay alive. Movies, documentaries, and even school books have given us the impression that survival was a never-ending struggle with barely a moment to breathe. But what if that picture is completely wrong? Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies, along with evidence uncovered by archaeologists, tell a very different story. Hunting wasn't something people did every single day. Large hunts were unpredictable, exhausting, and often unsuccessful. Experienced hunters knew that wasting energy could be just as dangerous as finding no food at all. If the group already had enough meat from an earlier hunt or plenty of gathered plants and fruits, there was little reason to risk another long chase. So, after their basic needs were met, something remarkable happened. Their day didn't suddenly fill with more work. Instead, they gained something many modern people feel they rarely have anymore. Time. Not empty time. Meaningful time. This isn't just speculation. Ancient campsites have revealed far more than hunting spears and stone tools. Archaeologists have discovered delicate shell beads carried across great distances, beautifully carved objects, colorful pigments used for painting, and even musical instruments crafted from bird bones. None of these things helped someone catch dinner that evening. They served another purpose entirely. They tell us that our ancestors weren't only surviving. They were creating. They were learning. They were strengthening friendships. They were shaping the very culture that would eventually make us human. But the most surprising part wasn't the art they made or the objects they carved. It was how they spent those quiet hours together. And that's where the real story begins. So, if hunting wasn't filling every hour of the day, what was everyone doing? Imagine walking through an ancient camp in the late afternoon. The excitement of the hunt has faded, food has already been shared, and the pressure to survive, at least for today, is gone. Instead of rushing from one task to the next, the camp is filled with the ordinary moments that make us human. A few people sit together repairing spears or sharpening stone tools, chatting as they work. Nearby, someone patiently weaves a basket while an older woman shows a young child how to braid plant fibers without breaking them. A baby begins to cry, and before long, several people step in to comfort it. In hunter-gatherer societies, raising children wasn't just a parent's responsibility. It was something the entire community helped with. But not everyone was working. Children chased each other through the camp, inventing games that quietly taught balance, teamwork, and quick thinking. Young adults wrestled for fun, testing their strength without real danger. Laughter echoed between the fires as people teased one another, shared funny stories, and yes, probably even gossiped. That may sound surprisingly modern, but many anthropologists argue that gossip wasn't meaningless conversation. It helped people understand who could be trusted, who had shared food fairly, who had broken social rules, and who needed help. In small communities where everyone depended on one another, talking about people was one of the ways relationships stayed strong. The archaeological record tells a similar story. In caves across Europe, scientists have discovered flutes carefully carved from bird bones, some dating back more than 35,000 years. Creating an instrument like that required patience, skill, and time, something no one would invest. If every waking moment was spent desperately searching for food. In other caves, the walls still preserve the handprints of children, silent reminders that families weren't simply surviving. They were leaving pieces of themselves behind. These discoveries reveal something important. Our ancestors didn't just build tools. They built friendships, traditions, music, memories. And as daylight slowly disappeared, all of those experiences came together around one place: the fire. Because when darkness covered the land, something extraordinary happened. The camp didn't fall silent. It came alive with stories that would shape imagination, pass on knowledge, and connect one generation to the next in ways that still influence us today. As the last light faded beyond the horizon, the camp slowly gathered around the fire. This wasn't just the warmest place to sit. It was the heart of their world. For ancient humans, daylight was mostly about practical tasks, finding food, repairing tools, caring for children, and preparing for tomorrow. But when darkness arrived, something remarkable happened. The conversation itself began to change. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner, who spent years studying the Juhuanzi people of the Kalahari Desert, noticed a fascinating pattern. During the day, most conversations were practical. Where were the animal tracks? which plants were ready to harvest, who needed help. But after sunset, around the fire, those conversations shifted dramatically. People stopped talking about survival. They started telling stories. Some stories explained how the stars came to fill the sky. Others celebrated great hunters, clever tricksters, or ancestors who overcame impossible challenges. Some were funny enough to make the entire camp burst into laughter, while others carried lessons that children would remember for the rest of their lives. Long before books, schools, or the internet, stories became humanity's first library. They carried knowledge from one generation to the next. They taught courage without a classroom. They warned against dangerous mistakes, without anyone needing to experience them firsthand. Around the same fire, music often joined the stories. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient flutes carved from bird bones, proving that people weren't simply trying to survive. They were creating moments of joy. Imagine the soft sound of a flute mixing with crackling firewood, as children listened with wide eyes and adults sang songs that had echoed through countless generations. These evenings did something far greater than entertain. They strengthened trust. They created shared memories. They reminded every member of the group that they belonged to something larger than themselves. Perhaps that's why humans became one of the most cooperative species on Earth. We didn't survive because we were the strongest animals. We survived because we learned how to connect. But those quiet evenings around the fire wouldn't last forever. Thousands of years later, a new way of life would slowly replace them. One that demanded more work, more routine, and less time for the simple moments that had shaped humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. And that change may explain why so many people today feel busy, yet strangely disconnected from the very life they were designed to live. For hundreds of thousands of years, this was the rhythm of human life. People searched for food when they needed it. They created when they had the time. They gathered around the fire each evening, sharing stories, laughter, music, and the experiences of the day. It wasn't an easy life. There were harsh winters, dangerous predators, injuries, and uncertainty. But once today's needs were met, life slowed down. There was room to think, to connect, and simply to enjoy being with other people. Then around 12,000 years ago, something changed forever. Humans began planting crops and domesticating animals. At first, it seemed like the greatest discovery in history. Growing food meant larger communities could survive in one place. Villages appeared, populations grew, civilization slowly began. But every breakthrough came with a trade-off. Fields couldn't be left alone. Crops needed watering, harvesting, and protection. Animals required daily care. Food had to be stored, guarded, and managed. For the first time, many people could no longer live according to nature's rhythm. Instead, nature had to follow theirs. Archaeologists have noticed an interesting pattern. When comparing ancient skeletons, early farming communities often show more signs of repetitive physical labor, poorer dental health, and nutritional deficiencies than many hunter-gatherers who lived before them. Farming gave humanity stability, but it also demanded far more routine and continuous work. As centuries passed, villages became cities, cities became kingdoms, kingdoms became nations. Eventually, fields were replaced by factories, and factories by office buildings. Today, many of us organize our lives around schedules instead of seasons, alarms instead of sunrise, and notifications instead of conversations. Ironically, despite all our technology, many people feel they have less free time than ever before. Maybe that's why we still love sitting around a campfire, listening to stories, making music, hiking through forests, or spending an evening laughing with people we care about. These aren't just hobbies. They are echoes of a life that shaped the human mind for hundreds of thousands of years. Perhaps our ancestors weren't happier because life was easier. It certainly wasn't. Perhaps they understood something we've slowly forgotten. A meaningful life isn't built only by being productive. It's built through curiosity, creativity, friendship, shared stories, and the simple moments that remind us we belong. Because long before humans built civilizations, we built connections. And even today, after thousands of years of progress, those connections may still be the most valuable thing we ever create.